Hello, my name is Jeff Rolka. Thank you for checking out my video. This is a really interesting question about singing over the break. And this is referred to, I usually refer to it as the secondo passagio, because there's nothing broken with your voice. But let's get into the question. When getting to what you call secondo passagio, oftentimes I feel my chest voice can continue to sing those notes without extreme strain. How would I know the optimal point to transition to that mixed voice? So there's a few interesting words in the question, but this is a really great question, and I am going to shamelessly plug the course that I made specifically to do this, because, in my opinion, the way to find the most optimal point of transition is via a lot of very disciplined exploration and experimentation. And that's what High Note Bootcamp was designed to do, was to help vocalists take a look at the area of the secondo passagio and narrow it down and narrow it down and narrow it down until they found that most balanced point. That doesn't mean you have to always do it that way. It just means you know where it is. And that is the answer to the question. You just got to experiment a lot and find out how your voice operates at the area of the secondo passagio. Now, I mentioned when I was getting started that the secondo passagio is what I refer to it that way, but it's not just me. That's what you'll find in vocal pedagogies, like books that teach the teaching of singing. The registration event, the second one, secondo passagio, passageway. And I adopted that early on in the channel because there isn't anything broken about our voices, and I just found it really confusing that we had this thing called the break. And the break is just one way of navigating the secondo passagio. And for a lot of male vocalists, that's going to be right in this area. So this is middle C. And then this area will be where something like, and the vocal folds just separate and it gets very breathy. What you can learn to do is navigate that registration event so that casual listeners can't hear that there's a registration event there. Now, I assure you, in both of those examples, I'm going from my chest voice, my thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice. Chest voice is thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, to my head voice, my cricothyroid dominant singing voice, and then I'm going back. I can do that very seamlessly because I've figured out exactly where the registration event is, and then I can blur the lines, getting close to it and going beyond it, and that's what gives us that seamless quality. Now, does that mean that I can't sing notes above the secondo passagio in my thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice? No, of course not. And given, if the repertoire required it, then I would do it. But since I mostly sing songs that I'm either choosing to cover or I've written myself, I don't really choose to do that very frequently. You can always choose to belt, and that's what that is. When you exceed your secondo passagio, in other words, the point where normally you would be transitioning, you push beyond that, and you commit to the chest voice musculature, the thyroarytenoid dominant singing voice, you are said to be belting. That's fine. Many, many people really enjoy doing that, and they consider it to be a very important part of their artistic expression, and that's great. But how much you're going to have to do that will be informed by where the secondo passagio is. And at some point, you're going to get to the point where you're going to get into the law of diminishing returns, and some amount of give will be required in order to continue ascending. At any rate, experimentation is what would be particularly helpful. Ascending scales, descending scales, maybe record some exercises. Do it like every fortnight, so every 2 weeks. Record a bunch of exercises, and maybe 1 week you are a semitone higher than you were last week for the transition. That's fine. See what it sounds like. What's the intonation like as you've made your way into the cricothyroid dominant singing voice, the so-called head voice? Is it consistent? Is the tone consistent? Are you able to make a seamless transition? In other words, you're not kind of going up. And that's a gross exaggeration, you understand, but there's not a big kunk when you're changing back. All of those artifacts they're clues to how our voice is operating. And when you get it all balanced out, you can be pretty smooth with it. And casual listeners won't hear it. And really, really good practitioners, even in studies where professionals are wanting to study vocal ranges, the professionals that are trying to do the study will often get fooled by the professional vocalists, because the professional vocalists have smoothed over that registration event so effectively that the professional people that are listening, trying to understand vocal range, won't know where the transition is, and then it just confuses the study. And this is a lot of that is the reason why you hear things about like these chest voices that just go on and on and on and on and on. The transitions are just very, very good. And casual listeners and even professional listeners aren't hearing it. Anyway, I hope that helps. A great question. Please let me know if there are any follow-ups in the comments below. I hope that those of you watching still have chosen to subscribe, and if you haven't yet, I hope you'll do so now. A big thank you to my Patreon supporters, and until next time, take really good care of your voices, enjoy singing, and hopefully we'll see you again. Bye.